So welcome to my YouTube channel. That's what we call The Good Life. It's August and I'm going to be talking about all the jobs you can be doing on your plot or in your home garden this month. Now it's such a busy time. It can be really overwhelming knowing what to do and what not to do. I mean, there's no right or wrongs, it's just keeping it all in check so you get a really good harvest. But I'm going to be running through some of the things that I'm going to be doing, and in turn they can be some of the things that you're going to be doing too. Now one of the jobs, and it's a boring one, is weeding. So for the last few days, I must admit my plot was looking a little bit sorry for itself. Now we do a mixture of just like hand weeding, using a fork, a bit of hoeing. We do a real mixture to keep it in check, and you have to do what works for you. But having a hoe is a really handy thing to do. So I've got a space over here, and on a really hot sunny day, I think it's like doing your hoovering on the allotment but with your hoe. Well, that's the way I look at it. So what you can do is you can just use a hoe like this. This is a Dutch hoe, and you just knock it out like that. Now you can either pick them up or you can take them up to your composter. It's just a really easy way. Now if you really can't be bothered to pick them all up, if it's a nice hot sunny day, you can just leave them on the top to die off and collect them up at another time, or they will just rot down, or you can take them up to your compost. And if you've not got a hoe, one of these is really handy. I will put a link up on the screen and one in the description, because if we have an allotment shop, I do have to tell you that I'll make a little bit of money out of it, but if something like a Dutch hoe would be handy for you, then that's something you can get. Something else you need to be doing is watering. Now it's been typically dry this year, so I've done a lot more watering than I would normally do, but you still don't need to water everything every day. So it's all about keeping a balance and keeping the right amount of watering in place. Now when things are in the ground, if I don't get any rain, I normally, and I'll talk about rain, a decent amount that it would water things, I would typically water twice a week, maybe even once, unless it's particularly hot when stuff's in the ground. You don't need to be watering things every day unless you've just planted them, or they're young seedlings, or it's something that you're particularly trying to push on, that you're trying to fruit out. If things are in pots, now that's a different story altogether. It does all depend on your pot, and you can easily need to water them every day or every other day, or if the pot's particularly small, you might need to water them twice a day. And the way you tell is if the pot's drying out. You know, people say, when do I need to water? Well, if the plant is sucking up all the water and the pot's dry, then you need to water it. And it's a similar thing with the ground, to be fair. As you can see, I've just hoed up those weeds, and that ground is still quite moist there. So you can see that it's still quite wet. So it's not really drying out. You know, that's another way if you're not sure about the ground, if the ground seems particularly dry. But if you water too much with stuff that's in the ground, it will get used to being watered, and it will get surface roots. Whereas if you don't water it quite so much, the roots will go down deeper and you won't need to water as much. So I hope that's a good tip to help you with watering. Something else you can be doing is there is mulching. So if you've got some mulch on your compost, it's a really good time to put some mulch around things. Not only does it keep the ground moist, it fertilises it, so it's a win-win, and also keeps the weeds down when you put a bit of mulch around as well. So that's absolutely fantastic. You also need to be keeping an eye on some of the pests that are out there. While I feel this year hasn't been as bad as some years, there are still some pests out there. Now the pigeons are always a problem on my plot, so I cover lots of things. There's the cabbage butterfly, there's the carrot fly, there's black fly. Now with things that are things like pigeons, cabbage butterfly, covers like this, Enviromesh is really good. So with this thin Enviromesh, it keeps the butterflies out, it keeps the fine bugs out. It's a really handy thing to have, and it really is quite durable. So I've got my brassicas underneath, a bit of Enviromesh. I've got my carrots underneath some Enviromesh to stop the carrot fly. This is to stop the cabbage butterfly, and also the little white flies that you get on cabbages as well. Now if you've not got any Enviromesh, I will pop a link up on the screen and also one in the description. If you've got black fly on your, say, your runner beans, what I do in the first instance is I just try and rub them off. Now I've got to say, I don't know if anyone else is experiencing the same thing as me, I'm not getting a lot. Because one of the things I've got to say, we have got such a lot more ladybirds this year. Now ladybirds absolutely love black fly. Now if you've got any, you see it on the undersides of the leaves. I don't actually think I've got any, but if you do, there'll be little black dots on there, but mine are pretty clear. If you've got some and you haven't got a lot, all I do is I just rub it off. That's all I do. I turn it over and I just rub it off. Sometimes you get a little bit on the stems and the same thing. I then just hose it off. I did have quite a lot on my broad beans when I had them, and I was literally just hosing it off with the hose. So, you know, you can usually control this. If that doesn't work, I do use something called bug clear. Now, I'll only ever use bug clear if nothing else works. I'll always try and do it myself, and this year I've been lucky enough not to need it. I will put a link up on the screen and one in the description. You dilute that down, and I do it as little as I have to, so I'll try and just do it once, and I'll hope that that's enough, because I don't like spraying things on my plants, but sometimes you do need to. But I'd love to know if you're like me and not getting an awful lot of black fly, which is completely pleasing me a lot. And I've got some lovely different little stripy beans on there that are absolutely fantastic. So something else you can be doing is harvesting. The best thing of all is harvesting. Now, there are so many things you can harvest in August. Literally so many. There's carrots, there's beetroots, I've got salad, I've got cucumbers, I've got tomatoes, but there are some things you need to be harvesting continuously to make sure you get a continuous crop, if that makes sense. So things like courgettes need continuously harvesting, because the more you harvest them, the more you get. Cucumbers are quite similar to that. Again, the more you pick, the more you get. Beans, the same kind of thing. You know, you need to be picking them regularly. So again, you get a constant supply of things like that. There's also some things like if your berries are fruiting, they need to come off as soon as they're ripe, because they don't sit on the plant very well. So some things, like my spring onions, I can leave them on for a little bit longer. My peppers and my aubergines, I can let them swell out. They, you know, that you can, you know, obviously you still need to pick them, and your carrots and your beetroots, but they're not such a turnover in a few days. My apples, if you've got any early apples, I've got a Bramley up the top there, which I've just taken a load of apples off. And if you've got any discovery apples, again, you might need to be harvesting those, because otherwise they'll start to drop. I've already found that some of my Bramleys are already dropping on the floor, so I've harvested myself a nice big basket full. If you're not sure when they're ready, apart from the fact sometimes you see some of them on the floor, they come off easily when you twist them. So if you pull one and it comes off easily, it's ready. If it doesn't want to come off easily, then you leave it on there a little bit longer. So that's a little tip there. Something else I'm doing is feeding as well. So some things need more feeding than others. Now, obviously you can feed things whenever you want to with the appropriate feed, but things I find that need more feeding to ensure a much better crop are things like peppers, aubergines, tomatoes, cucumbers, squashes, courgettes, my beans, things like that. I find they're a little bit more hungry and they need a little bit more feed. And while you can use like a normal multi-purpose feed, I often find a tomato feed works really well, because it's encouraging more bloom, and that's what you're trying to do on those kinds of things. You're trying to encourage more bloom to get more fruit. Now, if you've not got any tomato feed and you'd like to get some, there's one that I like, Levington's Organic, which is absolutely fantastic. I'll pop a link up on the screen and also one in the description if you'd like to get some of that as well. So there's just another couple of jobs to talk about. Now, if you're getting value from this video and you'd like to do something called Buy Me a Coffee, we will put a link up on the screen and one in the description. It just helps me run this channel, and I'd be very grateful if you've got some value out of the video as well. Now, the next job is when you're harvesting, you have to store it. Now, obviously you can freeze things, you can preserve things, you can make jams and chutneys, but something I like to do is I dehydrate things. So some things like chilies, apple slices, I make courgette chips, I do all sorts of wonderful things with it. I've dried more things than I could ever imagine, so it's really handy to have a dehydrator. The one that we got was an Andrew James one. We did a lot of research. Some of them are really expensive, and this one was really good, and it does exactly what we need. So we will put a link up on the screen and one in the description if you'd like to get one of those. Now let's move on to the tomatoes and tomato care. Now, I hear lots of people with lots of different issues. There are lots of back videos, so do feel free to go back through my back videos, but I'm just going to run through some of the things you need to be doing with your tomatoes. You still need to keep tying them up. So as you can see, I've tied this tomato up. They do keep growing, and also if you want them to stop growing at some point, you pinch the tops off, which I've done with that as well. And there's also side shoots. You may still be getting side shoots that you need to remove as well. So there we go, there's a side shoot. A side shoot comes between the main stalk and a leaf coming out. So you just pinch it out, nice and easy. Main stalk, leaf, and then you just pinch the side shoot out. So obviously keeping them well watered. Now these are in the ground, so I don't need to water these as much. So I probably water them every 3rd day unless I get a really big downpour. Were these in pots, I would water them an awful lot more. You will need to feed them as well with the tomato feed. Again, I spoke about one earlier in the video. So again, we'll pop the link up on the screen and also in the description if you want to get that. The other thing is I hear a lot of people that their tomatoes aren't ripening very quickly. Now I've dealt with a lot of these, but this one I've left so I can show you what you need to do. So with this one, I've got lots of completed trusses of fruit here that you can see. Now as you can see, they've started to ripen, but they're not ripening very quickly. Now one easy thing you can do to help them ripen up is you can remove the leaves below the completed trusses of fruit. So I'm not removing the ones above, I'm just removing the leaves like that. So just get your secateurs, because they can be a bit thick. With pinching out, you can do it with your fingers, but these can be a bit thick. It seems a little bit brutal. It not only helps them ripen, it also helps with disease as well. So I hear a lot of people getting different diseases. Blight is one of the scariest ones that none of us want. That's a side shoot that should have been removed. But by doing this, you create more air around the plant and you're less likely to get blight. Not guaranteed that you won't get it, but it comes through. You know, the blight starts by attaching itself to the leaves and then it goes into the fruits. So by taking off these, if we do get a little bit of blight, they're less likely to get it, and if they get it, they won't be quite so bad. Well, that's the theory anyway. So I know this might seem a little bit scary and a little bit brutal, but really this will help these tomatoes ripen up a lot quicker, and it means they're a lot less susceptible, because these are fully grown pretty much and they just need to ripen up. Now there's also lots of things you can be sowing this time of year. I've started off a few herbs, some salad leaves, some carrots, some chard. I've got a whole plethora of things that I've started off. Now if you're wondering what you can sow in August, I will pop a link up on the screen of what to sow and also one in the description.